to my Flagstaff home. Today I'm going to talk about bees. Last summer I took a gardening class at our local university, and one of the things I had to do in that class was give a presentation on something garden related. And so I chose the topic of bees. I looked into a lot of different aspects of bees, the declining bee population, Africanized bees, different things like that, and so I wanted to share some of those things with you today. So first of all, there are a lot of people who recognize the importance of bees, and they are extremely important. We need them for pollinating our crops and things like that, and even, just pollinating in our own little backyard gardens. But there are a lot of people who are afraid of bees and don't want them anywhere near their yards. And we've heard stories about Africanized bees, and there's a lot of fear around that. And so I thought I would share some of that stuff with you. So Africanized bees came about as a result of an experiment where African bees were brought by scientists, Brazilian scientists, into labs, and then some of them, they were trying to come up with a kind of bee that would be really productive and that could survive in tropical environments. And so what happened is that some of the bees got loose. And so the feral bees bred with European honeybees and made this new strain of bee. And the thing that is scary about them to a lot of people is that they're unstable. So they're most bees will attack if you bother their hive. Africanized bees get ticked off if a dog walks through their territory, or a person or anything like that. And so, and then they all get really agitated and can attack. And so the fact that they are aggressive and easily provoked is one reason why people are afraid of them. There are actually honeybee farmers or whatever, beekeepers now who have hives of Africanized bees and are having success with them, and they're producing well and stuff like that. So people are becoming less afraid of them. But they've actually traveled into different parts of the United States, not all over the United States yet. They've found them in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico. I think they found some in Colorado and Southern California. And they're kind of making their way north. And so that's where, there's been a growing concern in the United States. So we can't completely get rid of bees because of our fear of them, because we really do need them. In fact, bees are the best pollinators. There are other kinds of insects that do help pollinate, but bees are responsible for 75% of the pollination of plants and crops. And so they really, really are very important to gardeners and farmers. So you may have heard about the decreasing bee population, and it really has become a concern over the past 10 years or more in the scientific community, trying to find out what it is that is causing this drastic decrease in bees. I know that in the past few years, I haven't seen too many bees around my yard even. This is the first year that I've seen quite a lot. So I've been trying to create the most bee-friendly environment with flowers and different kind of plants that attract bees, and also making sure that I'm not doing things in my yard that would end up killing those bees. And so we'll talk more about that later. I'm looking at some notes I have over here so I remember everything, so sorry I'm glancing away. But what this is referred to is colony collapse disorder. So the bee colonies, for whatever reason, are just, they call it collapsing, but they're dying off. And it's happening in both domesticated bees and wild bees. And so, it's a real concern. Why is this happening? Some people believe it's from pesticides. Some believe it's from viral pathogens. And then there are also parasitic mites that can get into the hive and kill off the bees as well. So there are some different things like that could be the reason. The really big concern of late is a certain additive to pesticides that are called neonicotinoids. And for short, those are called neonics. And just in case you want to go back and refer to some of this stuff, I have a blog post that goes along with this video. I'll link to that exact blog post in the space below. It'll be over on my blog at my Flagstaff home. So So neonicotinoids were introduced as a safer alternative to like DDT, which had all kinds of bad effects on the environment. And it is, but they are thought to be one of the big problems with the decreasing bee population, and let me tell you why. Now, if you spray pesticides in your yard, and the pesticides, if they're still wet on the leaves and a bee lands on them, then it's going to kill the bee, because a bee is an insect, and so it's going to kill all of the insects. So you have to be really careful about those kinds of things if you're using pesticides in that way. But the really bad thing about neonics is that they get into the plant systemically. So if you spray it on a plant, it dries, but it goes into the plant, and then it gets taken through the plant system and gets into the pollen. And so when bees come and eat the pollen, then they end up being impacted by the neonics. It doesn't just instantly kill them. For some, it keeps them, it kind of disorients them and makes them so they cannot find their hive again. For others, it makes them so that it kind of like does something so that their brain doesn't work, the way it should, and they can't learn, so they don't learn how to seek food or learn how to get back home. And so that has really become a big concern. And in multiple countries in the European Union, it has been outlawed. You cannot use any kind of pesticide that has neonicotinoids in it. In the United States, that's not been the case. People have just said, well, we don't really know for sure. It could be the parasitic mites, it could be this, it could be that. And so they have not wanted to ban the use of neonics in pesticides. There have been some organizations that have done some pushing, enough so that the EPA, or Environmental Protection Agency, has said, let's speed up our investigation of this, because they're thinking that there now might be enough information that would prove that this could be a factor. And so they're starting to really investigate, and I'm hoping that eventually they will say that they can't use this as an additive to pesticides, because we can't lose our bee population. So currently, neonicotinoids as an additive to pesticides are currently being used on 95% of corn crops, sugar beet crops, cotton crops, and 50% of soybean crops. And it's unknown as to the prevalence of their use in residential pesticides. In fact, I even asked the guy who was doing our pest control at our house if the pesticides he used had neonics in them, and he had never even heard of them and wasn't even really sure. So I just told him, spray around our house, spray maybe around the base of our house, but stay away from my gardens. I just really don't want anything like that to impact the bees around my home. And maybe that's why now I'm seeing more bees, because I'm telling them to stay away from my gardens. And so I don't know. I don't know if they're in residential pesticides. If you happen to have any information about this and you know about it, I would love it if you would comment in the space below. So you may wonder, what can we do to help this decreasing bee population? Well, there are things we can do. First of all, you can ask questions. You can ask questions of the person who does pest control at your house. You could make a decision not to have a professional pest control company spray your home. You could use more natural means of pesticides. You can research those pesticides that you're using around your home so that you're not using something that would have adverse effect on bees. We can, of course, advocate for bees, contact people about our feelings about what's happening to them. But a real easy thing to do is plant bee-attracting plants to our yards, and then, of course, keep those pesticides away that might kill them. Because if we plant all these lovely bee-attracting plants, and then we're using something on them that is going to kill the bees that come, it's like putting out bird feeders laced with arsenic or something. So we wouldn't want to do that. There are certain kinds of plants that you can, flowering plants and different things you can put in your yard that will attract bees. Alyssum, which is a little kind of a filler sort of a plant, ground cover kind of thing, real short, low to the ground, puffy, tiny little flowers. Those will attract bees. Bee balm is another kind of taller flowering plant that attracts bees. Black-eyed Susans will also attract them. Cone flowers will attract them as well. There are a lot of different things that you can do. We planted some butterfly bushes, and those not only attract butterflies, but they also attract bees. So things like that you can do. If you can bring those bees to your yard and attract them because of flowers, then we hope that then they will go over to our gardens and pollinate our vegetable plants. The other thing we can do, and this is going to sound a little preposterous, is that we can raise bees. Now, I'm not going to be a beekeeper. In fact, I'd probably get in big trouble in my neighborhood with my homeowners association if I was raising bees. We're not going to do that. I'm not going to gear up, and go out there and take care of bees. It's kind of a cool idea, but I'm not doing it. There is a kind of bee that you can make a home for in your yard that is a great pollinator, that doesn't sting or only rarely stings, and that is called a mason bee. Mason bees look a lot like big flies. They're completely black, and I'm going to pop in a picture actually right here of what a mason bee house looks like that you can get. So they like to live in little spaces in woods, so that's why that home that I showed you, it has actually tubes, and they will lay their eggs in there and raise their babies in there. You need to put it on, I think you just need to put it on a side of your house that is warm and gets sun, and I'm not exactly sure if they lay eggs that winter over the next year or if they go away when the weather gets cold and then come back. We live in an area that gets very cold in the winter, so I'm not exactly sure how that goes. This is something I'm wanting to get into. And the other thing is, I think all you have to do with these mason bee houses is just put one out. If you build it, they will come, kind of a thing. And so mason bees, like I said, are great pollinators, don't have hives, and they don't produce honey. But you want them around because they pollinate so well. The males don't sting, and the females very rarely sting. So you don't have to be fearful that if you have children and dogs and things like that, that you're going to have some kind of an attack. And because they don't live in hives together, they're not going to do that attacking thing. So, and I just want to mention this. This is another thing I found in my research, that if what you're supposed to do if there is a swarm of bees, and we're not talking about mason bees here, but I figure this is worth mentioning. So what you're supposed to do if you are attacked by a swarm of bees is, well, first of all, let me tell you what you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to lay down and play dead. You're just giving them a really good target to attack. You are also not supposed to jump in water, because they will just swarm over the top of the water and wait for you to come up for air, and they attack you then. You're swatting at them is just going to tick them off. The best thing you can do, apparently, according to what I found, is run. And also try to protect your eyes and your mouth. If you can keep your mouth closed or cover your mouth and then sort of, cover your eyes and enough that you can see so you can run. But you can run faster than bees. It may take you a little while to outrun them, but you will outrun them. So that is the best thing to do. Let's just hope that doesn't happen. But the mason bees, you don't have to worry about that swarming kind of a thing, because they're not that kind of bee. I have not set up a mason bee home in my backyard, but it is something I'm intending to do in the future. I've kind of waited too long this summer. We're already nearing the end of July, and so I don't want to. In fact, I don't even know if I could attract any mason bees to my yard at this point in the summer. But definitely want to do that next summer so that I have more pollinators in my yard. But I just thought I would share this information with you, especially the stuff about the neonics in pesticides, because that's a really bad thing. I mean, it's one thing to have a pesticide that kills something because it was touched by it, but it's a whole different thing when it's being sucked up by the inside of the plant and then impacting the pollinators when they go and go for pollen. So I hope this information was helpful to you. If you have any other information about bees or the decreasing bee population, I would love to hear about it, and you can comment in the space below. Like I said before, I have a post over on my blog at My Flagstaff Home, which I will link below, that you can go over to, and you can see more of this information up close and personal. I'll also put some references in there for some articles that you can look at if you're interested in taking a closer look. And if you're not currently subscribed to my channel, I would just encourage you to hit that button right there. YouTube will let you know when I upload new videos, which is a couple times a week. And I hope you will join me again on My Flagstaff Home. Take care, you guys. Bye-bye.